The transcendental bliss enjoyed by the devotees of the Lord is completely different from the material happiness enjoyed by less intelligent persons. The less intelligent persons in the material world are engaged by the four principles of benediction called dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Generally, they prefer to take to religious life to achieve some material benediction, the purpose of which is to satisfy the senses. When by that process they become confused or frustrated in fulfilling the maximum amount of sense enjoyment, they try to become one with the Supreme, which is according to their conception, mukti or liberation. There are 5 kinds of liberation, the least important of which is called sayujya, to become one with the Supreme. Devotees don't care for such liberation because they are actually intelligent. Nor are they inclined to accept any of the other 4 kinds of liberation, namely to live on the same planet as the Lord, to live with Him side by side as an associate, to have the same opulence, and to attain the same bodily features. They are concerned only with glorifying the Supreme Lord and His auspicious activities. Pure devotional service is Shravanam Kirtanam. Pure devotees who take transcendental pleasure in hearing and chanting the glories of the Lord do not care for any kind of liberation, even if they are offered the 5 liberations. They refuse to accept them, as stated in the Bhagavatam in the 3rd canto. Materialistic persons aspire for the sense enjoyment of heavenly pleasure in the heavenly kingdom, but devotees reject such material pleasure at once. The devotee does not even care for the post of Indra. A devotee knows that any pleasurable material position is subject to be annihilated at a certain point. Even if one reaches the post of Indra, Chandra, or any other demigod, he must be dissolved at a certain stage. A devotee is never interested in such temporary pleasure. From Vedic scriptures it is understood that sometimes even Brahma and Indra fall down. But a devotee in the transcendental abode of the Lord never falls. This transcendental stage of life, in which one feels transcendental pleasure in hearing the Lord's pastimes, is also recommended by Lord Chaitanya. When Lord Chaitanya was talking with Ramananda Raya, there were varieties of suggestions offered by Ramananda Raya regarding spiritual realization. But Lord Chaitanya rejected all but one. That one should hear the glories of the Lord in association with pure devotees. That is acceptable for everyone, especially in this age. One should engage himself in hearing from pure devotees about the activities of the Lord. That is considered the supreme benediction for mankind. So these are words spoken by the 4 Kumaras in the presence of the Lord, in the spiritual world, and in the presence of the 4 Kumaras and the 2 doorkeepers. So we have been seeing how the Lord appeared there, and now towards the end of this chapter we see the Kumaras speaking, and they are sharing some very important spiritual principles that we should be aware of. Na atyantikam viganayantyapite prasadam. Prabhupada used the word in the purport, there are 4 benedictions. The less intelligent persons in the material world are engaged by the 4 principles of benediction. Prasada. And the highest among the 4 prasada, 4 benediction, Atyantikam prasadam. Te Atyantikam prasadam. Your highest benediction. Na viganayanti. Viganana means to evaluate, to calculate, to measure, to regard. Na viganayanti. They don't regard. Na atyantikam viganayantyaphi te prasadam. Te prasadam, te atyantikam prasadam, na viganayanti. What is that atyantikam prasadam? That is moksha. Among dharma, artha, kama and moksha. Moksha is considered to be the atyantika prasada. And even that, na viganayanti. They don't regard, they don't consider that as so important. Kim vu anyadarpita bhayam bhruva unnaya iste. So what to speak of other benedictions? Anyad arpita. What you offer, other things that you may offer. Kim u. What about that? They atyantikam prasadam na viganayanti. They don't even care for the highest benediction of liberation. Kim u anyadarpita. What to speak of other offerings that you may make. Ye, those devotees, anga, tvad-angri sharana. Because they have taken shelter of your lotus feet. Tvat-angri sharana. And what do they do, having taken shelter of the Lord's lotus feet? Bhavataha kathayaha kirtanya tirtayashasaha. And they are engaged in kirtana of bhavataha tirtha kathayaha yashasaha kirtana. They are engaged in glorifying bhavataha, your tirtha kathaya, tirtha very pure, kathayaha, your descriptions, tirtha yashasaha, your wonderful glories, kirtanya. They are engaged in glorifying. And they are kushalaha, and they are very, very intelligent people. And rasagnaha. Here rasagnaha, the translation that Prabhupada has given here, referring to rasa meaning essence. They know the rasagnaha, one who knows the essence, or one who knows things in its essential nature, one who knows things as it is. So in other words, these are intelligent people. They know things as they are, and they are surrendered to the lotus feet of the Lord, and they are engaged in glorifying the wonderful activities and glories of the Lord. And because of that, they do not consider, they do not regard the 4 purusharthas, including the 4th atyantikam prasadam. Persons who are very expert, kushalaha, and most intelligent in understanding things as they are, rasagnaha, engage in hearing narrations of the auspicious activities and pastimes of the Lord. Bhavataha kathayaha tirtha yashasaha, which are worth chanting, kirtanya, and worth hearing. Such persons do not care, na viganayanti, even for the highest material benediction, namely liberation. Atyantikam prasadam, to say nothing of other less important benedictions. Anyad arpita, like the material happiness of the heavenly kingdom. So in this verse, the Kumaras have, from this we can make out, the Kumaras have now come to the correct understanding. Having seen the Lord, having realized the personal attributes of the Lord, and as they had heard, as they mentioned, as they had heard from their father, Lord Brahma, now they are on the dot about spiritual realization. Because they are saying, even the 4 benedictions are not important. Something that is more important is to hear and chant the glories of the Lord. They have understood the importance of that. This is described by Rupa Goswami as one of the characteristics of pure devotional service. Moksha lagutha krit. One of the 6 qualities of pure devotional service is to disregard moksha also. Even mukti is not considered to be very important. Mukti is considered to be the most important thing in general religion. Dharma, artha, kama and moksha. These are known as the purusharthas, chatush purusharthas. But in the principles of pure devotional service, even these 4 are disregarded, and the Kumaras are stating that here. And we see that as Rupa Goswami, all these Goswamis, they have thoroughly studied the Vedic literatures and they have picked up the essence and they have presented that. And how did they do that? Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught them. This is the special benediction of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He taught the highest principles. And then who does that? Kumaras are saying, Kushala Rasagnaha. These are people who are very expert, Kushala and Rasagnaha. They know things as they are. They know the essence of all of the spiritual Vedic knowledge, and they are familiar with the rasas of interactions with the Lord. One who knows the mellows or humors. Both sense can be taken for that word, rasagnaha. This understanding about the 4 purusharthas and pure devotional service being superior to the 4 purusharthas happens very early. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu explains very early during his interaction with his spiritual master, Ishwarpuri. This is one of the very beautiful sections in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We will read these series of verses and you will see how this happened to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and how he learnt this from his guru. We know Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Gaya to perform the Shraddha of his father who had passed away. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had an elder brother, and at some point his elder brother took sannyas and went away. And the father could not bear the separation of the son, and he was deeply lamenting. Both father and mother were lamenting, and the father was so much affected that in that deep lamentation he gave up his life. So at that time, the other son was Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So he traveled to Gaya to perform the Shraddha ceremony of his father. But there was Ishwarapuri. It is described in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's biography. Before he came to Gaya in Navadvip, he was known as a fierce debater. He was known as Nimai Pandit, very expert in Tarka, Nyaya and Vyakarana, and he would engage with even grown-up scholars and engage in debates with them. So that was how Nimai Pandit was conducting. And that is how Keshav Kashmiri Pandit comes to Navadvip and he defeats him. All of that has happened. Now he comes to Gaya to perform his Shraddha of his father, and he returns to Navadvip, and people are surprised to see what has happened to Nimai Pandit. He's completely a changed person. Simply an utterance of the name of Krishna is throwing him to raptures of ecstasy. He is a transformed person. So what is it that happened in Gaya that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself explains in his own words? And he says that his spiritual master, Ishwarapuri, gave him, he wanted to learn Vedanta Sutras. And his spiritual master told him, you are not fit to learn Vedanta Sutra. Why did he say that? Because Nimai Pandit was a great scholar. Why is he not? If he is not fit, then who is fit? Actually, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Prabhupada explains, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's reply was because to tell us that in Kali Yuga, actually no one is qualified to study Vedanta Sutra and all of these commentaries and understand properly. But the purpose of Vedanta is served by what his spiritual master tells him, which is to chant the names of Krishna. By chanting the names of Krishna purely, offenselessly, one can fulfill the true intent and purpose of Vedanta Sutra. So, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu receives the Krishna Nama mantra and he starts chanting, and all kinds of strange things begin to happen to him. He's sometimes crying, there are tears in his eyes. Sometimes he's laughing like a madman. People are looking at him and thinking he's become a madman. Sometimes he's crying, sometimes he's fainting, and all of these things are happening to him. And so he went back to his spiritual master, Ishwarapuri, and asked him. He asked him, Kiba mantra dila gosani, kiba thara bhala, japite mantra karile pagala. What kind of mantra have you given me, Goswami? My dear spiritual master, what is its power? Kiba thara bhala. Kiba mantra dila gosani, kiba thara bhala. So here, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is acknowledging that this mantra has some special power. Japite mantra khorile pagala. I have been chanting and chanting, but I've gone mad. Everyone is seeing that I am mad. Hasai nachai more koraya krandan. Sometimes I'm laughing, sometimes I'm dancing, sometimes I'm crying. And people are seeing that I have become pagala, madman. Hasai nachai more koraya krandan. When I told this to my spiritual master, Eta shuni Guru hasi. My Guru heard me and he smiled. Bolile vachana, and then he spoke to me. So what did my spiritual master tell me? Krishna naam maha mantrer ete svabhav. Ei jape thare Krishna upajaye bhav. This is the nature of Krishna nama maha mantra. Krishna naam maha mantrer ete svabhav. This is the nature. Ei jape, whoever chants this one, Tare Krishna upajaye bhav. Then his bhava Bhava Bhakti, Krishna Bhava Bhakti, upajaye. It arises in his heart. Then what happens? Krishna Vishayaka Prema, Parama Purushartha. This is his spiritual master telling him. Krishna Vishayaka Prema, love for Krishna, for anything connected with Krishna. Parama Purushartha. This is the highest Purushartha. Purushartha, the four Purusharthas, four benedictions which we are talking about. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. This is the Parama Purushartha. Yara age trunatulya chari Purushartha. Before this Parama Purushartha, Krishnaika Vishaya Prema, Chari Purushartha, the four Trunatulya, they become just insignificant. Truna means a grass. They become equal to some grass. Yara age, before Parama Purushartha, Krishna Vishayaka Prema, Trunatulya Chari Purushartha. Why is that? Why is it so? Panchama Purushartha Premandanamrutha Sindhu. Mokshadi Ananda Yare Nahe Tare Eka Bindu. Panchama Purushartha Premanandamrutha Sindhu. The nature of this Panchama Purushartha, the fifth Purushartha, usually Vedas talk about the four Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha, up to Moksha. Now, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is introducing something that is beyond Moksha, which is the Panchama Purushartha, Krishna Prema, and before that Panchama Purushartha, the four other Purushartha, Trunatulya, they become insignificant. You see the same thing the Kumaras are mentioning here. Just see how wonderful Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teachings are. They are actually taken out from different parts of the Bhagavatam, taking out all these important principles and presenting them. This is the position of pure devotional service. Now, important thing, why is it that the devotees, they consider that as Trunatulya? Why do they consider that Dharma? Dharma is so important. And from Dharma you will get Artha. Artha is so important. The world is mad after Artha. Everyone is looking for money. And from money you will get Kama. You will get fulfillment of your sense gratification. These are all so important. And then the principle is, when you do Dharma, Artha, Kama, and enjoy your senses again and again, because you are doing good practice of Dharma, you will get lot of Punya. Because of Punya, you will get Artha. And when you have Punya and Artha, you will have wonderful opportunity for gratification of the senses. So trying to enjoy the senses, not only on earth, even in the higher planetary systems, all kinds of pleasure you try to enjoy, and then you will come to an understanding, oh, none of these things are satisfying me. Then they start thinking of moksha. And then they discover, in moksha there is so much pleasure. In moksha, generally here moksha is referring to Brahmananda moksha. It is referring to the impersonal realization, where you deny all sense gratification, and now because the sense gratification, to whatever extent you try to satisfy in the material world, it will come to an end. That is the nature. Somebody becomes Indra, first of all, he is always in fear. He will lose his position. Even if one becomes Brahma, his position also ends. So all these are very elevated positions. All of these positions come to an end. They realize that, and then they look for something else other than this. And then that leads to the understanding of moksha, sayujya, Brahma sayujya moksha, which is merging into the impersonal Brahman. And there is Brahmananda, which is very high level of pleasure. That is usually the understanding given in the Vedic literatures. Now Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is going beyond that. Even that Brahmananda, what to speak of the others, Artha and Kama, all those Anandas, even all of them are considered Trunatulya in front of the Panchama Purushartha, which is Krishna Prema. Now, the question is, those who are in that Panchama Purushartha, Krishna Prema, what do they do? And what they do is explained by the Kumaras here. Tvadangri Sharana. They are fully surrendered to your lotus feet. And they are constantly engaged in Bhavataha, Tirtha, Yashasaha, Kathayaha, Kirtanya. They are engaged in hearing, chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. The Shravanam Kirtanam Vishnu is the stage of pure devotional service. And by doing that, they are relishing the highest pleasure. In fact, that is what Prabhupada begins the purport. Why is it that devotees who are doing Shravanam Kirtanam, they are able to reject all of these Chatush Purushartha, Chari Purushartha? Why they are considering it as Trunatulya? Because the quality of transcendental bliss and experienced by the pure devotees is completely different from the quality of bliss that is experienced in Dharma, Artha, Kama and including Moksha. That is how Prabhupada begins the purport. The transcendental bliss enjoyed by the devotees of the Lord is completely different from the material happiness enjoyed by less intelligent persons. It is because of that quality of the transcendental bliss. That is what Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also says. Panchama Purushartha Premanandamrita Sindhu. Prema Ananda Amrita Sindhu. It is an ocean. Mokshadi Ananda Yare Nahe Eka Bindu. Mokshadi Ananda, Moksha, Artha, Kama, all that Ananda, compared to that Eka Bindu. Nahe Eka Bindu, it does not even compare to one drop of the pleasure of the ocean of pleasure of Prema Ananda Amrita Sindhu. That is the difference. And then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's spiritual master says, Krishna Namera Phala Prema Sarva Shastrakaya. Krishna Namera Phala, the most important result of Krishna Nama is Prema Sarva Shastrakaya. All the Vedic literatures declare this, but it is all hidden, not always openly known. It is very confidential. So, an Acharya in the disciplic succession who understands this, that is how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his Guru, Ishwar Puri, his Guru, Madhavendra Puri, they were the ones who identified this and they taught this. Bhagya se prema tamai karilak udaya. You are very fortunate. Bhagya. Se prema tamai karile udaya. That prema, which is actually Krishna Namera Phala, the result of the holy name. The result of the holy name is not Artha, it is not Kama, it is not Moksha. Those benedictions may come from holy name also, but that is not the highest offer of the holy name. The highest benediction of the holy name is Prema Sarva Shastrakaya. Bhagya se Prema Tomai Karila Uday. And that Prema you have awakened. So, spiritual master Ishwara Puri was very happy that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had done that one. So, the difference is in the quality of pure, the bliss of pure devotional service. And pure devotional service is Bhavata Kataya Kirtanaha. Hearing and glorifying the activities of the Lord. And this is considered to be kushala, rasagna, most intelligent conclusion. This is the highest conclusion. One who knows the essence of things come to this conclusion. Now, Prabhupada points out another important thing. This Chaitanya Mahaprabhu does in different ways. How does this come about? Prabhupada mentions here, for this to happen, for this understanding to come about, one should hear the glories of the Lord in association with pure devotees. That is acceptable for everyone, especially in this age. One should engage himself in hearing from pure devotees about the activities of the Lord. That is considered the supreme benediction for mankind. Now, for this understanding to come about, otherwise one could be lost in dharma, one could be lost in artha, one could be lost in kama, one could be lost in moksha, and consider that I'm a very religious person, I'm following the Vedic injunctions very nicely, and think and be satisfied and remain like that. There are a lot of people in the world. They are very religious. Even now, if you take a poll, it will say that 90% believe in God. Large number of people are religious people in the world. And what are they doing? They are religious. They are pursuing artha. They are pursuing kama. They have not even come to moksha. Very, very, very few people. And they are absorbed in that. And some people, when they are frustrated, they may think about some moksha, some yogis are there, some bogus people are there, they are telling them something about moksha and something they are pursuing. So this is how, by and large, the human population is. So for somebody to cross all this and come to devotional service, Tvadangri Sharana, how does that happen? For that to happen, one should come in touch with a pure devotee. This is the only way. And when in the association of such pure devotees, when Krishna Katha is discussed, then there is a special potency which is released, and that potency touches the heart of a conditioned soul. He becomes awakened. And the awakening begins, and the awakening progresses gradually until one becomes fully awakened. Otherwise, jiva is actually sleeping. Different kinds of sleep in dharma, artha, kama and moksha. So really the jiva to be awakened, the living entity has to hear from the pure devotees. And that is what Prabhupada is concluding here in this, that one should hear the glories of the Lord in association with pure devotees. That is acceptable for everyone, especially in this age. Now, in another opportunity, so when Srila Prabhupada in 1966 went to Tompkins Square Park in New York, and he was chanting the holy names, and a few young Americans gathered around him, and then he spoke a little bit. Mostly he would chant. Sometimes he would also speak a little bit. And then he attracted them to the storefront he was living in. And there he chanted more, and he spoke from the Bhagavatam, from the Bhagavad Gita. A very unique thing was happening. Those young Americans, they had reached a certain stage of enjoyment of artha and kama. They were already into all kinds of kama. Their society had become very prosperous. Economic prosperity was there so much. And they were enjoying their senses freely in all kinds of sense gratification. And they were not satisfied. And they were looking for something else. Someone told them that you take drugs, you will get more higher kind of enjoyment. They were trying all those things. Some of them were still not satisfied. And there they come to the park and they hear a pure devotee chanting the holy name of the Lord. And they experienced a special potency there. And they were drawn to Swamiji. And when Swamiji invited them to the storefront, they all went there. And there Srila Prabhupada engaged in more chanting, more hearing, and they began to understand and appreciate this. It was actually this phenomena that was happening. Hearing about Krishna, hearing the holy name, hearing the pastimes, hearing the qualities of the Lord in the association of a pure devotee. Now we see that happening all the way from 1966 up to 1977. When Prabhupada traveled all over the world, so many thousands of people were drawn to him. Now, did this stop in 1977? Did that influence of the pure devotee and his ability to transform the hearts, did that end? Once in 1975, Srila Prabhupada had come to San Francisco. Devotees had identified one new temple and they had built and set up the temple. And Prabhupada was very happy to come to that temple. The deities were there. And then the very next day, a press conference was arranged. By then, 1975, lot of followers were there. Book distribution was happening. Hare Krishnas were known, and they are seen in airports distributing books. All that was well known. So the news media people, they came, and there were a lot of media reporters, and there were cameras and bright light, and Prabhupada conducted a press conference. And the media people were asking different questions. One of them asked the question, what will happen to your movement in America after you die? And immediately Prabhupada, under the bright light, he said, I will never die. And everyone, all the devotees cheered and said, Jai Srila Prabhupada. And then Prabhupada continued saying, I will never die. I shall live in my books and you shall utilize. So Prabhupada is sharing that important principle that a pure devotee's influence will not die after his physical disappearance. His influence will remain in his words. And Prabhupada said, all that I wanted to say, I have said in my books. So Prabhupada will continue to live in his books, and his influence will continue to manifest in this world as long as we are reading, hearing, chanting, following what Prabhupada has given in the books. The influence of a pure devotee will continue to endure in this world and continue to transform the hearts of people. And when that happens, we will begin to experience that higher transcendental bliss when we can consider all the four Purusharthas as insignificant. This the Kumaras have realized. The stage of pure devotional service, what pure devotees do, what is it that they experience, and how they reject everything else and consider na viganayanti. Atyantikam prasadam na viganayanti. They disregard even the highest benediction in the form of moksha. What to speak of other material benedictions? We'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.